Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Okay, it's time for a ramble, and this ramble is going to pull together a lot of things that I've been thinking about over the last few months. The channel is just over a year old. We're coming up to 10,000 subscribers, and whilst in YouTube terms that's minimal, I think I could honestly say that I feel the channel has progressed quite well. We've seen steady growth, and there's been lots of questions about how I've done this and how I've got the sort of growth that I have with just over 100 videos. So I thought it was perhaps time to answer those questions and talk a little bit about what I've done and what I do, just for those who are interested, and we'll take it from there. Before I go any further, though, I would like to say that if you enjoy my videos or even this video, please subscribe and like. It really helps that YouTube algorithm, which can be a fiddly thing to get right. As you all know, I've also recently started a Patreon account, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can join at patreon.com/OldTechBloke. Okay, so you see the little pop-ups. Let's start this ramble. So without further ado, I'm going to try and split this into sections to make it manageable. Let's get on to the first section where we talk about content. So let me say right from the word go, if you're thinking of starting a YouTube channel, especially if it's a Linux one, think very seriously before you do so. I think there is a perception out there, certainly it was a perception I think I probably had before I started, that you get your content together, and content is king. You've got to have decent material that you put out there that is going to interest people, so let's take that as read, the content, that all you do is you sit in front of your camera, your webcam or your phone or whatever you're using, you talk for however long it takes to talk, and to finish your video, you upload it, and badam, that's it. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's not quite as straightforward as that. In fact, I would describe the YouTube experience a little bit like Linux itself. It's the learning experience that keeps on giving and keeps you occupied continuously. Not perhaps quite as interesting, but nevertheless I enjoy learning anyway, so that's what keeps it going. But there are lots of things that you've got to take account of. Yes, you have to produce decent content, or content that interests a potential audience. I had a number of different topics in mind when I started. I mean, my hobbies were Linux and ThinkPads, and I'm also vaguely interested in politics, but not enough to produce a channel. And I originally thought, well, perhaps I do a combined channel looking at Linux and ThinkPads. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, that doesn't really have the legs to produce constant videos on that. Probably better to stay on track on one subject. And so I picked Linux. And everything I do is Linux related, even my rambles like this. They're ultimately about doing something in Linux. And so you get on, you produce your videos. First thing that I would say to anybody about thinking about doing this is decide what you would like to talk about in your videos at least once a week, every week, continuously, regularly. Because if you don't put out videos on a regular basis, in fact, the regularity is more important than the amount that you put out, although the amount's important as well, you will lose viewership. People start to expect you to publish on a certain time, on a certain day. So that's important to start off with. You've also got to have a little bit of a passion for whatever subject you're running your channel about. Because believe me, there will be times when you get up on a Saturday morning and you think, oh, I don't feel great today. And you've still got to drag yourself up there and produce the video. It's an expectation that you're going to put on yourself. And it's not going to just be a quick half hour or an hour. I would guess, I mean, my videos are quite long, as you know. They've ended up that way because that's my style. I find it really hard to do quick, throw it out there, quick 10 points, off you go. I'd rather have a conversation with you. And I reckon that for every 30 to 40 minute video I put out, the time it ranges from starting the video, ignoring the research and everything that goes on before, to getting the video edited, to getting it uploaded, doing all the promotion that I do, you are looking at 6, 7 hours on average. So it's a big chunk of time. So if you're thinking that this could be a great way to earn a second income, well, it might be eventually, but don't expect an instant hit, especially if you're doing a niche subject like Linux. You can look out there on YouTube and you can see all the channels that have millions of views and millions of subscribers. There's not many Linux channels fall into that pot. In fact, we have a couple of biggish exceptions. Chris Titus Tech with his 180,000 subscribers. Wow. And I know some people have said, how on earth have you done that? Well, flipping hard work, I would imagine, the amount of stuff that he puts out. So he's the exception rather than the rule. If you look at the Linux channels that are out there, you'll find that most are floating around the 500 to 3,000 subscriber level. That's probably about average. And many of those channels are really good. I think they're brilliant. I really enjoy watching them. I'll give a shout out now to Steve's very own. He does live broadcasting, and I really like his channel. And I think it needs a lot more love. But he live streams only, or mainly. And the unfortunate thing is, whilst live streaming can be quite good as a backup to recorded videos, on its own, it doesn't seem to get that many views, and not that many people watch it afterwards once the recorded version hits YouTube. So, yeah. So it's a real mix out there. Unless you're doing funny cats, or reviewing credit cards, or you're doing a review of makeup, the chances are in Linux you're not going to hit 1 million subs. Yes, we have Linus Tech Tips, who's far more broad than a Linux channel, and he's been at it for a long time. So you have to be quite realistic. But coming back to the content, one of the keys is getting the content right. And that's partially about what you're interested in. And I would say that's probably the most important thing to publish your videos about, because the enthusiasm you have for a topic will come through in the video. But it's also about being aware of who your potential audience is, and making sure that that video gets placed in front of your potential audience. Because the sad truth is, you can be producing the most brilliantly produced videos every single week that go into real depth on a subject area that your potential fans would absolutely love, and that are produced beautifully. I mean, I'm not particularly good at the artistic side, but are produced beautifully. And you can find yourself 4 or 5 months down the road asking yourself whether or not you're simply producing a video library for yourself because you're not getting any views. And I'm afraid that that's one of the hard things about YouTube. Your content matters for keeping customers or viewers once you've got them on board, but actually you've got to get them on board to start off with. And if you don't do something to make sure that they find your video, it's not going to happen, or it's going to take an awful long time for people to find you. Alongside the content, of course, there's also the issue of, have you got the right kit? Is it good quality video? Is it good quality sound? All of that matters. But I would say that after your content, the most important aspect is making sure that people are seeing your videos. This is, of course, assuming that that's what you want people to do. Certainly, I produce videos in the hope that people will watch them. And even if you do everything right, it goes a bit like that. Some videos that you think should be really big don't seem to do a great deal. And other videos that you just produce and think, oh, well, this isn't going to do that well, suddenly take off. I suppose what I'm saying is running a Linux YouTube channel consists of a number of portions. Art, which is all about your content creation. Science, which is about following some of the basics in terms of your equipment and promoting the video. And then one of the biggest parts of getting a successful channel is luck. Huge chunk of luck. So you might just put a video out there that takes off for whatever reason. I've had more than my share of luck with this channel. I had DT give me a shout out when the video was on, or when the channel was on 47 subs, and just getting a shout out from a popular YouTuber, I was up to 1,000 subs within days. Having said that, it took me another 5-6 months to add an additional 1,000 to that. And there were a couple of things that sort of changed that slow growth rate. One was a little bit of luck as far as getting a video that suddenly took off. Not this version of Linux Mint, but the previous version of Linux Mint. I did a review of it, and it's got 60-odd thousand views. It's my highest viewed video. And the more viewers that you get on YouTube, the more the YouTube algorithm loves that, and it'll just keep putting your video in front of potential viewers to click on, because YouTube wants to keep people on the channel. So success breeds success breeds success. So that was a big bit of luck. But I also think that there was a bit of science involved as well, because around the same time, I started looking in a little bit more depth at making sure the equipment that I had to do this was the best that I could afford. And also I started looking at how to promote the video properly to make sure it got in front of as many people as possible. So let's start off with my kit. Right, so the kit. Of course the kit's important. Nobody wants to watch a video with rubbish sound quality or rubbish video. And probably the sound quality is more important. But that doesn't mean that you have to go out and spend fortunes on kit. Now, I made a mistake. I was absolutely convinced, initially anyway, that the secret of a successful YouTube channel was in large part due to the kit that I had. And I probably spent far too much initially. I think that was a mistake. I started off quite conservatively with, well, as you know, I've got a little Intel NUC, so my hardware is not particularly powerful, but that was neither here nor there. I bought myself a C920 Logitech webcam. I managed to pick up one second hand, and I did realize that I probably needed a decent mic. And to this day, I think you need a decent mic because people won't forgive you for poor sound quality. And so my biggest investment was the Blue Yeti, Blue Yeti microphone, the condenser microphone, which is just a USB microphone that you plug in and you go. And that got me started. And if I'm honest, probably would still have been good enough for the channel. I think the impact that the equipment that I've bought since that initial setup has probably cost me money that I didn't necessarily need to spend. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think the audio quality's improved as I've gone on, because I do, or that the video quality's improved, because I think it's got much better since the old C920 days. But what I'm saying is it's not something that you need to worry too much about. Getting the content right is more important than that. But as you go on, you will probably want to improve the channel just because, you know, you get pride in doing it. And the kit that I've ended up with has been sort of an evolution. I'm not saying it's the right way to have done things if I was starting from scratch now, because I would have done it very differently. But it's certainly got to the point where if I take audio quality, I'm really happy with the audio quality from this channel now. I think that it's probably as good as it can get without spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds more. And I don't think I'd see the huge difference in audio quality from what I've got now. So how did the evolution happen? Well, I started with the Blue Yeti, as I said, condenser microphone. And it's a cracking microphone, but it picks up everything from everywhere. And there was a lot of kind of peripheral sounds that it was picking up. And so I thought, well, let's move up a step after a while. And I bought the Audio-Technica AT2020, which is an XLR microphone. So it couldn't just plug into a USB slot on my little Intel NUC. It actually had to plug in through an audio interface. And I ended up getting the Scarlett Solo, so quite an investment, which then in turn plugs into the computer. I wasn't really happy with it, though. There were a couple of reasons why. It's a condenser mic as well, but I saw a drastic drop in volume compared to the Blue Yeti. Just didn't seem to be as sensitive. So I had to, in order to get it to work properly, whap the gain up as much as I could on the audio interface. And for me, to my ears anyway, it just wasn't producing the sort of sound that I wanted. So I eventually upgraded that, and I upgraded it to a Rode Procaster, which is a dynamic microphone. So it's not a condenser mic. It's got quite a narrow field, so you have to be quite close to it. But that has the advantage of not picking up all the peripheral sounds, but it takes an awful lot of gain to make this thing work. Just using it directly into the Scarlett Solo audio interface, it was like I was whispering all the time, even if I was shouting directly into the mic. And I was sort of aware that could be a problem. So I invested in a little mixer to use as a preamp, and that helped a little bit, but it didn't really give me the volume that I wanted, but it gave me the ability to mess about with EQ a little bit and just sort out the tone. But I really needed to sort out the gain. So you should see in front of you my audio setup. And I'm sure that many of the audiophiles out there will be saying, oh my goodness, you don't need to do it like that. You could have done this or that. And I know that, but please remember that this was an evolutionary step. The way I have this set up at the moment is this. I have my Rode Procaster microphone, then being plugged into this, I don't really know what you'd call these, a pre-amplifier, or a preamp amplifier, or just a booster, whatever you call it. The microphone needed a big boost, and you often find this with dynamic microphones. Unless you have a preamp that has really powerful gain settings, and usually quite an expensive preamp, you're probably going to have to give a dynamic microphone a bit of woomph to make it work properly. Now, one of the things that is quite popular for doing this is a bit of kit called, I think it's called a cloud lifter. Yes, it's called a cloud lifter. There are variations on a theme. The cloud lifter is actually quite expensive, though. So I did a little bit of research, and this came off eBay, but I see Marty Audio here actually has his own website now, and they do this little inline booster. It cost about £40. So it was significantly cheaper than the cloud lifter, and I have to say it's been spectacular. To give you an idea of the difference that it made, when I had this thing plugged directly into my mixer or the audio interface, I had to have the gain turned all the way up just to bring the volume up to a level that was acceptable. Unfortunately, in doing that, the signal actually got quite dirty as well, with lots of interference, so it was nasty. As soon as I hooked it up to this booster, the gain is hardly on. It's literally, I'm just looking here at 5 past on the dial. It gives it such a boost that it gives you a lot of flexibility. And one of the reasons that it can do that is this is powered by phantom power. You can't, or you tend not to have to use phantom power with a dynamic microphone, but you can use it with one of these. So it's a way of getting a bit more oomph into it. I have 2 XLR cables, one going from the mic to the Marty Audio booster, and then another XLR cable going from the booster into the Mackie Mix 8, which is my little mixer. Again, that was an eBay buy, secondhand. I can't remember what I paid for it, about 50 quid, something like that. And I actually prefer the sound out of the preamp on this than I do out of the Scarlett Solo. So I'm using that as my preamp, and I can also play around with EQ, just to alter the tone and feel of the audio. This hasn't got a way, though, to plug it into my computer, my Intel NUC down here. So I'm using the Scarlett Solo as the interface between the mixer and the computer. Obviously, I've got gain turned off completely on this because I don't want it running twice. I've got that on the mixer, and this is literally just as a pass-through. So that's my audio kit as I've got it set up so far. So a bit of an evolution. What about the video? Well, the video is something that came a little bit later. I worked with the C920 Logitech webcam, and I tried a different webcam along the way, which to my mind, although it was, subjective, produced a slightly better picture. But in the end, I decided to go for a proper camera, which, if I go to the combined screen again, was the Sony A5100. And I'm really not a camera buff. I tried playing around with the settings, and to be honest, I just leave it on automatic and I take the view that it can do things much better than me. So why not let it figure out what the best settings are for me doing a video? So I just switch it on, and that's about it. And I literally just have it hooked up through a capture card, and I use it as a webcam. And looking at the old videos of me using the C920 compared to this, there has been a definite improvement, and I'm really very happy with this. And I use this Elgato cam link. So the camera goes direct into the cam link itself plugs into the Intel NUC, and for Linux usage, I can tell you that these two things work a treat. Lighting is also important, and I'd be the first to admit that's not something that I've got right yet. Part of it's about the tininess of this room, but I use a few generic LED lights scattered around, big one in front of me, and a couple of little ones on the side. So that's the kit. None of it is necessarily I can't even say that necessarily. None of it is necessarily essential, but you will probably just want to upgrade your kit as you go along, and that's likely to be evolutionary with what you learn. And this is where I'm up to. What about the software? Right, software. Well, if you're running a Linux channel, you really need to be using Linux software. It would feel wrong to me to be producing videos about Linux and then swapping onto Mac or Windows in order to do the editing. And truth of the matter, it's just not required. We have some great things on Linux. Let me just go to the combined screen. And if I was going to talk about the Holy Trinity, the GIMP, which I'm no expert on. I have been learning along the way, and I've got my son to produce quite a few bits and pieces for me. But it does produce things like overlays for the channel to use with OBS and for things like thumbnails. And I'm starting to use it more and more. But right at the heart of video production, I don't think there's that many people would disagree, OBS Studio. OBS Studio is absolutely brilliant. And not only is it brilliant, but it's simple to learn, and it just does the job. But then we come to the contentious thing, the video editor. Let me say I hate editing video. I like recording the videos, I like putting them out and doing everything else, but the actual editing takes me ages, and I really find it very frustrating. So what I need is a piece of software that does the job for me as quickly and as painlessly as possible. I started with OpenShot, which there's nothing wrong with. It's a little bit clunky, the interface, but there's nothing wrong with it. It does the job. And I moved on to Kdenlive, which is what most Linux YouTubers seem to use. And it's an incredibly functional piece of software. It's very advanced. It can do all sorts of different things. But it was also driving my very conservative hardware, my Intel NUC, very hard. When it was rendering, it was really hammering the hardware. I was getting overheating and all sorts of things. And I also found it was quite unstable version to version. I use Arch Linux, as you know. Sometimes I was using the install versions, sometimes I was swapping over to the Flatpak because one was more stable than the other. And that video I produced on me dumping Kdenlive was just when I got to a stage where it wasn't handling, a particular version wasn't handling the MOV files that I have as my little pop-ups. So I did a bit of trial and error, and I swapped over to Shotcut because my initial tests seemed to suggest that had most of the functionality in it that I wanted. It also does hardware rendering, so it accesses the VA API, and it's so much quicker than Kdenlive for me, and it doesn't drive my computer anywhere near as hard. So whereas Kdenlive would be running the CPUs at 100% while I was rendering, it seems to stay at around 65 to 70% shortcut. And as I've been using it since producing that video, I've learned to love it. It's very intuitive. It's not crashed. It's fast. It's suiting me down to the ground. When I produced that video, I had all sorts of responses. Large proportion of them sort of agreed and confirmed the experience that I'd had. But I also had a lot of KDE or Kdenlive fans come up with all sorts of strange responses. Blaming my hardware to start off with. It's your hardware. You need to get more powerful hardware. I had one a few days ago. It's your fault. You need to get at least an i9 processor to make this work. Well, if I need at least an i9 processor, I'm not going to use it, am I? I'm going to choose something that fits my hardware a little bit better. So telling me to get a different computer to solve a problem is not exactly a decent suggestion, is it? It's a bit of a moronic one, in fact. I also had that people say, you just need to change distro. It works fine on XYZ distro. Yeah, I'm not going to do that either. I use Arch Linux and I'm going to stay with Arch Linux. Therefore, I'm going to find a piece of software that works with Arch Linux. Weird what tracks people can go down. So change your distro, change your computer, and then blaming me for the settings on Kdenlive. Well, I won't pretend to be an expert. I'm not. I just want to start it and work. Yeah, I don't want to spend hours fiddling with it. I just want it to work. It's not my favorite part of the job. Shotcut does it and does what I need. So I haven't changed my mind about Kdenlive. I've followed up some of the suggestions. Oh, you need to use the app image. So I used the app image, and yes, it handled the MOV file that I was having problems with. It still drove my computer really hard and took a lot longer to render the video than Shotcut did. So I haven't really changed my mind. In fact, when I do upgrade my hardware, which I'll do once I move into this cabin, that's a separate issue. It's in the works at the moment. I will still use Shotcut because my experience with it has been so good. So I've dealt with the importance of content. I've showed you what kit I've got. I've told you about the software that I use. The next thing, of course, is how do I get people to watch the videos? Now, next to the content that you produce, which is probably the most important aspect, I think, about having a successful YouTube channel, there's also this thing about how do you get it out there and persuade people to watch it. I probably end up with twice as many outtakes as I end up with clips that end up in the video. Because I make mistakes all the time. That's why I try and keep it short and manageable in sections as much as I can. But just to give you, for instance, things often go wrong and I stumble over my words, and there is some choice language that comes out on those outtakes. You'll never hear me swear on this channel because I take the view that I don't know who's watching it. And it's not that I'm whiter than white. It's just I wouldn't like to think that kids would come across my channel and hear effing and blinding. So I make a point of ensuring that that doesn't happen. So when I make a mistake, part of the editing is it's about chopping those bits out. But even once it's been edited and I have a video, because I have lots of different sections all kind of stitched together, the audio tends to be all over the place because on some sections I might have been closer to the mic and, the thing I hate, my mobile phone, which I keep over the other side of the room when I'm recording, might be receiving email and you get some static interference, after you've just worked on producing a clip. So they need to be edited out. So the audio, needs to be tweaked once you've got the published version, or once you've got the version that you want to publish. Now, you can do this in a couple of ways. Audacity is one of the ways. And I've tried that a few times, and it's a great piece of software. Unfortunately, I'm not skilled enough, and I end up doing more damage than good every time I use it. And that's completely about my knowledge and skill set. However, recently I was watching a video by Chris Titus Tech, and he suggested a website that could sort the audio processing out for you. Let me just show you. Right, so you should see this in front of you now, Euphonic, euphonic.com. And what a wonderful website this is. It gives you 2 free hours a month of audio production, and you can pay for extra. I've paid for a little bit extra. I think I paid about £30 odd, but I reckon that's going to last me 4 or 5 months. You simply click on New Production. I've chosen a preset. I choose YouTube. I upload the video in its entirety, and I click Start Production. It uploads the video, it processes it, and once it's done, it tells me it's ready, and I download it. And it's normalized all the video so that it's all consistent. It's got rid of a lot of rubbish and the noise and hum, as it says there. And this has been like a revelation to me. It really has. Euphonic, what a great little piece of software. So that's helped a lot. It really has. I can tell the difference, and my perception of sound isn't brilliant, but I can tell the difference, and it's been good. So that helps. It improves the quality of the video. But no matter how good your video is, it's not going to make a difference unless you put it out in front of people. So let me go to the combined screen again. And it seems a minor thing. It really does. But one of the most important things is your thumbnail. It's what YouTube put in front of people. And if all you're doing is a bit of a capture from part way through your video, it's not really going to entice people to click on it, is it? But on top of that, the big thing is making sure that you appear in people's search results when they search for a video. And this is all about keywords, tags, and the title of your video to make sure that it's consistent with what people are looking for at the moment, making sure that your video description is long enough and references all the keywords that you've chosen. Probably the best way that I can show you this is to go to, again, my webpage, open up one of my videos, and I'll show you what I mean. Now, you can do keyword searches manually, but one of the things that I've actually found useful is a little add-on called TubeBuddy. There's something called vidIQ that I use intermittently as well. And what these allow you to do is keyword searches. So if I was to just click on the vidIQ icon here and go to a keyword explorer and type, I don't know, create Linux YouTube channel in there and run it, what it will do, oops, I've sort of spelt that wrong. Let's just run it again. If I had create Linux YouTube channel in my title, it will assess how that title fits in with your channel and what tends to be watched on your channel, and give you an overall score specific to how it thinks you will actually do. So, you know, what's the current search volume? What's the competition like? How much is that term optimized? Percentage of videos in the search results, 2.98 million. And the average of what it thinks I could do. So I could get about 3.08 thousand views on this, just on that word search alone. And it also suggests some common video tags that are included in videos that actually have that. If I come out of here and go back to my page, you'll see that when you're uploading a video, you have a little section here to put in your tags, and you have a maximum of 500 characters that you can use for your tags. And it's suggested that you use as many of them as you possibly can. And you can see here I'm using 499 out of my maximum 500. And I always try and get the tags. And these tags come from my word searches on YouTube itself, and also word searches within TubeBuddy, and looking at similar sorts of videos and what tags they have. TubeBuddy also helps by suggesting a number of tags that you can insert relevant to your video. And I found it to be really useful for me. You've also got your description here. People ignore the description, but you've actually got 5,000 characters that you can potentially put in here. And what's important is that within your video description, you highlight as many of the keywords that you've put in tags as possible, and you also reference the title of your video in the video description and in your tags. Now, this takes a lot of work to get right. It really does. But let me just tell you a little bit about what my experience has been. When I got to December of last year, and I crawled up to about 2,000 subs, it was going really slowly, and I started watching videos about how to optimize the views on your channel. And I got hold of TubeBuddy, and I started doing keyword searches, and I started being quite careful about my tags. And I went through all the videos that I'd produced previously, and I updated all the tags. All I can say is that I saw my views double within the space of a number of days on all of my video library. And it's not surprising, really, because suddenly my videos were coming up for YouTube searches. Let's talk about post-publication. So just ending this video really with a little bit of a discussion about post-production or post-publication. You can also get your video in front of, well, it helps if you get your video in front of as many people as possible. And I certainly post on my Facebook group, I post in Reddit, I post on a number of other groups, including Twitter, and anywhere that you can post a link to your video to maximize the number of people who are potentially going to click on it and watch it, the better. Personally, it's important to interact with your viewers as well, and I make a point of trying to respond to all the comments. In fact, I do watch the comments quite closely in the first hour or two, and then at various points throughout the week I'll return to them. I don't like comments to get lost in the mix, so I will respond to them as we go. And you watch them throughout the week, and you respond to them as they crop up, and you start thinking about what your next video will be. So that was quite a long ramble, but I thought it might be of interest to a few people. So for those who were interested in my setup and how you do things, hopefully this has answered you. For those who wondered how I get so many views, well, it's not an exact science, this. As I say, it's a mixture of art, science, and blind luck, and probably lots of unknowns as well with that YouTube algorithm. But this is what I do, and this is what I've seen results from. And your content, of course, has got to be interesting to people. So yeah, hopefully you found it interesting, a little bit different to the norm. So just before I finish, I'd like to say, please join me on Library. I'm also over there. That's one of the other places that people can watch this channel. And I would particularly like to say a big thank you to my Patreons. As you know, it's only a week or two since I started my Patreon page, and we've now got 11 members. I'm pretty blown away by that as well. The latest member is Robert Boudreau. I hope I haven't butchered your name, Robert. He's come in on a higher tier, one of the empty tiers before that, and he's come in as a supporting member. We also have Cabinian Schilderman as a premium member, and of course a big thanks to everyone who is supporting the channel. So Aristotelis, Papa Giorgio, Stormpix, Stephen Cross, Mike Long, David Bird, Entropy UK, Richard Wade, Tiger and Philip Espy. Thank you so much, guys. I can't tell you how much it's appreciated. These are the guys who are going to influence how this channel progresses over the course of the next year and make it all it can be. That's it for now. Hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. Bye-bye.